Afternoon, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon. Michigan football and basketball. Dennis Fithian and former Wolverine Jim Scarcelli on this Wednesday. Good to see you, Scar. What's going on?
Hey, life is good, man. I wish our basketball team was doing a little better. But, yeah, it's a little frustrating. I thought we'd be a little better than we are right now.
Well, speaking of basketball, it's on the list to talk about. Also, Schembechler coming to Ann Arbor. We have Super Bowl thoughts. We know the game is on Sunday. You might be Super Bowled out, but Scar, in the picks that he was giving before the Super Bowl and really all year long, it made me have to talk about the Super Bowl with Scar. Also, some coaching clinics on the high school and college level. Jim is going to talk about that, but we'll start with what Scar mentioned there right at the top, and that is the basketball team who goes to Madison last night in a late start, and they lose by 5 points, 64-59. Just in general, what are your thoughts here? Michigan in a tough spot now when it comes down to the NCAA tournament. We all know that, with 5 games to go. What do you think?
Danny, I don't think we're very smart on defense. I see so many mistakes we make on defense. God, we lose our guy. We seem like we don't communicate. You know, I watch Wisconsin. I watch some of the teams we play, and we just don't seem connected defensively. We make mistakes that you see from freshmen, and so that's something that's real frustrating. And you know, I'm just going to keep it real with you, man. I don't know how Jace Howard gets in the game as much as he does. I'm just going to keep it real. I don't, you know, he doesn't. If he's in the game, I'm not covering him outside of a layup. I'm not covering him. I'm going to let him shoot. And it's very frustrating. And that's it.
Yeah, Michigan's 14-12. You know, for me now, thinking about it after last night, when you look at this Michigan team, they have played in a lot of games that you could say that they've been in them. One possession game, couple point game in the last few minutes, and they've lost all of them with the exception. They beat Minnesota at home in a situation like that where it was tight at the end, but they lost at least 4 or 5 of them. And what's going to separate good teams, tournament teams, from not making a tournament, going to be able to execute and make some of those plays down the stretch and win some of those games. And Michigan, besides that Minnesota game, they haven't been able to do it. They lost to Central, Kentucky, North Carolina, Virginia. You know, the list goes on. Indiana, Wisconsin. There's a few for you. And you're not going to win all of those, but being able to make plays down the stretch is what is going to separate the tournament teams from non-tournament teams. And every game, there's a little something different. They don't, you know, when you say they're not connected, sometimes they're not playing hard like the Central game. You know, that's not very good. Last night, Wisconsin was playing, you know, whether they were playing harder, they were going to the offensive glass. They were the 349th offensive rebounding team in college basketball, and yet they worked Michigan over on the offensive glass. That's a lot.
Yeah, Danny, some of those rebounds, I'm watching it. You know, I got my DVR going. I'm rewinding it like a coach. Some of those rebounds are effort. Some of them were effort, and a lot of it is coaching. We're just not getting. You got to establish position sooner. We don't recognize it. We don't anticipate shots, and a lot of that is coaching, and some of it was effort. You know, those second shots were pissing me off, and then you know I talk about Michigan's defense. I'm looking Wisconsin defensively. They did a real good job against Hunter. They made it real difficult to get him the ball, and you know, there's just little things from an effort, coaching, execution standpoint.
Yeah, I would also put so the offensive rebounds were number 1 in Wisconsin on their second from last possession. Was able to get an offensive rebound with under a minute to play, and that was key for them winning. And then you got to make free throws, and you know. Will Cheddar had a chance to get into the starting lineup. There's some things to like there, but when you have under 90 seconds to go and you step up to the free throw line in a 2-point game, you got to make those free throws, and he missed both of them. Hunter Dickinson split a pair. Doug McDaniel split a pair with just over 4 minutes to go. that's not enough. You got to be able to knock those down. You're not going to knock all of them down, but if you want to know how to win close games, make your free throws and, block out, some of the elementary things. And for this game, it ended up costing them. When they look at the film, they're not going to like that. But these last two games are maddening. If you're a Michigan fan, Wisconsin couldn't score a field goal. They couldn't make a bucket, and neither could Indiana on Saturday night. And then Michigan, they were turning it over as well. Two games that they could have had that were right there. If you feel like if they were able to execute some simple things in basketball, you could be talking about 2 wins. The narrative is completely different if we're sitting here talking about Michigan on a 5-game winning streak, rather than dropping these last 2 games and now looking like it's going to be over, save a miracle run in Chicago in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, you got to find a way to close, and you got to play. We don't play smart. We don't defend. You want to win consistently. You got to play good defense. We're worried about other stuff, T-shirts and ski masks and too much other stuff, man.
Well, you mentioned it, Scar.
Talking junk, talking crap about the opponent. It just irritates me, man. I'm old school. That ain't happening if I'm coaching. That's how I was. That's how I was coached. I just don't believe in it.
All right, well, there's your thought. If people don't know what we're talking about with T-shirts and podcasts and ski masks, let's just fill them in a little bit here. This is a photo from before the game. Thanks to MLive for the picture. They were there. It's Jet Howard wearing a free Juwan T-shirt. For me in this game, if I'm a journalist, or if I'm a member of the media, if I'm a talk show host, I'm thinking, what's at stake here in this game? Well, Michigan is in dire need of a win. So Michigan's tournament chances, that's going to be number one to me as somebody who's watching this game. That's going to be the top storyline. The second storyline is Juwan Howard, who was suspended 5 games last year for a slap swing at the Kohl Center, is returning there for the first time on Valentine's Day. That's a rich storyline. His son is drawing attention to that by wearing a free Juwan shirt. And, Juwan could have been fired for that situation. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, hey, I'm being funny. If this is cool, I don't know. Usually, like when you see guys what they're wearing for the game, that there's a lot of things that there's social messages. It's something about the team, and in this case, you have what I would put down like just a rogue T-shirt, self-serving. Like, I'm funny. Like, I don't like that. So I would have been against that too. If I would have seen that, I'd have been an assistant. I'd have just said, hey, look, you're not trying to draw attention to Juwan Howard getting suspended 5 games last year. That was one of the most negative situations in Michigan basketball history. So let's not draw attention to that. The attention that Michigan wanted was winning the game, and then Guard and Howard after the game being able to shake hands and move forward. Not about let's be funny with a free Juwan Howard T-shirt. Bad move by Jet Howard.
Yeah, I agree, Danny. I don't see the point of it. Let it go. It's done. It's buried. Everybody learned from it. Coaches, players, and I don't understand it either. Why revisit it? You hit it right in the head. Put it away. Focus on winning a tough road game. I can't explain it, man. Can't explain it.
This season, you had Hunter Dickinson, who went on a podcast. It's one of those. It's a Barstool podcast, so it's a bro podcast, and he said Wisconsin fans are a bunch of scumbags. And so then he walks into the arena wearing a ski mask last night, and when he was asked about it, he said he was coming in to steal a win. Now, Scar, like, people say, well, this is funny. This is Hunter Dickinson. He likes playing the villain. Phil Martelli, couldn't stop last year laughing about Hunter Dickinson would be a great WWE wrestler. Wouldn't you guys, laughing about it and everything else. I have never seen in my entire life, either in pro or college basketball, a player walking into the arena wearing a ski mask. Dennis Rodman, after he was done with the Pistons, wore a pink boa and maybe dressed in drag. And guys wear some flashy clothes in the NBA coming in. You want to go to old school or not, Scar? Wearing a ski mask is ridiculous. I mean, but Michigan is asking for it. The cat's out of the bag. They encouraged it. Phil Martelli did last year. There was no apology from Dickinson about the scumbag remark, and so then he walks in wearing a ski mask. All a bunch of stuff here that when you're the leader of the team and your team is underachieving is going to make people come at you. You want the smoke, you're going to get it now. And, he deserves the smoke that he is getting when he walks in. Not even to say a tragedy less than 48 hours before that in East Lansing are going to have some people, you never know how people are going to react and all that, but they're going to say, wow, do you think, how about the self-awareness when what happened up in East Lansing and you're wearing a mask? I think that's unwanted, unwarranted criticism, but you're asking for it when you do something like that. If I would have been a coach and I would have seen him getting off the bus with a ski mask, I would have grabbed him and said, hey, not now. We're not doing this. And so that would have been an issue. But that's what I think, Scar. What about you?
Benny, you and I are old school, man. Listen, I've been I played under a pretty disciplined guy, Schembeckler, and then I was a head coach. And I know what it is to be a head coach. Everything is a reflection of you when you're the head coach, not just what happens on the field. I know what it is to have teachers come to me, hey, this kid did this in class. This kid's doing this after school. This kid's doing this here. Everything is a reflection of you. And I just think I think the leadership is cheating our players when you allow them to say the things like that about the whole Wisconsin deal. I mean, just specify the certain people you have the problem with. Don't just blanketly say everybody's scum. I mean, I just don't agree with it. I don't think it's a good lesson that we're teaching. He's still a kid. He's a 21, 20. Well, I don't know how old Hunter is, but I just think the leadership has to say, look, man, grow up. But Denny, I think the mentality is that, that you got to let these kids have some freedom. I guess that's what, the millennials are. That's what they're asking for. That's what they want. And listen, Juwan played at a time when, they wore the baggy pants that he asked the coach. He said, let him wear them. So his upbringing is a little different than mine playing for Schembeckler. So he believes in maybe some of that freedom that players should have. So I'm not for it because I'm thinking I'm always trying to develop the kid outside of just being an athlete as being a man, being a young man, acted right, treating opponents with respect. So that was my mentality, and that's how I always coached. Yeah. So it's frustrating to see some of that.
It's a good point from you about, the old school views and however you brought up and where Juwan is at and freedom in the NBA. And what Andre says, I think is true. It wouldn't be a big deal if they were out there winning meaningful games. I think that I'm going to use it again, narrative would be a lot different. People would say, oh, Hunter Dickinson, he's just one of those guys that lives on the edge. He is like a Draymond Green. He is like a Ron Artest. He is like a Dennis Rodman. He's like a John McEnroe. He has to have that. He is on the edge, and sometimes he's going to go over it. And that's what it takes, to dial it in. And then if the thing about him, hey, we want players. You're always talking about these milquetoast quotes and everything. You want. If you listen to that, you guys don't understand. Barstools for the up-and-comers, and it's all about what we want to hear. If that very podcast, you heard the guy, once he said that there were a bunch of scumbags, he said, that's what college basketball is all about, Hunter. And everybody's like, yeah, let's go. And so.
No, hey, Denny, back in my day, there was a guy named Brian Bosworth talking and just doing the same kind of things. If you ever read some of his quotes that he said about different schools, and he was attacked. I imagine the Oklahoma people loved him, but he backed it up. They were a winning football team then.
Well, there's your point. There's your point. Bosworth was a good player until he got run over by Bo Jackson on that Monday night game. Hell of a player. And, those other guys that I mentioned, they're winners. If you're not winning and you're asking for it, going out there and doing a bunch of quacky things, you're going to have people look in and say, what the heck is going on? I've never seen a player in all, college or pro, you can be a bro or whatever want, wearing a ski mask. What's he going to do for an encore now? They're going to wear a pink and polka dot dress, when he's coming in on Saturday night against Michigan State? How about winning some ball games? The sideshow stuff, when you ask for a bunch of attention and then you lose ball games, you're going to get negativity, even from your own fan base. And so Hunter Dickinson, he put his chips in the middle there with a 2-8 offsuit and he got burned. And so here he is. And Andres is right. It would be different if they could actually win some meaningful games. They have not. And this is not a media creation. This is a Hunter Dickinson creation. The media wasn't saying, hey, Hunter, it was you go on a bro podcast. They want you to talk trash and say stuff like that. That's their profile. Act like a bro. Say a bunch of, crazy things. Nobody was saying, hey, in the media saying, hey, Hunter, you're going to wear a ski mask? You're going to dress and drag going to the game? That's what's going on. And when you get a team underachieving and not making the tournament, all of this, the three main storylines, Michigan circling the drain and they lose to Wisconsin and doing it in the manner that they've done all year long, not being able to execute down the stretch. Second biggest storyline, Juwan goes back to Madison. His son's wearing for whatever reason, for attention for himself, free Juwan t-shirt. Bad move. Dickinson, scumbags, face mask, self-awareness. That's not the media. Those are the players, and that's the coaches.
I hear you, Danny. Well said. Let's move on.
All right, let's do it.
A lot of good stuff to talk about.
That's it. There's no reason to just sit around all day long doing it like this. You want to know things about recruiting and what's going on with Michigan basketball and football all day or all night. You just heard Scar say, let's move on. You don't have to move on. You can sit around and talk about it on the Den, on the Maize and Blue Review. You want to do that? Join up at michigan.rivals.com. That kind of conversation is happening right now over there. And you don't have to listen to somebody like Scar that's saying to move on. Scar, let's move over to the big game on Sunday. It was a hell of a game right to the end. And you had the Chiefs beating the Eagles. I just want to say that you were adamant and you doubled and even tripled down to me after I kind of moved on. And you said, hey, don't forget, Jalen Hurts is going to be running his ass off in this game. Jalen Hurts over the rushing total. And I looked at it was a pretty gaudy number when I was looking on Sunday, 50.5. I thought, wow, man, they're really putting it up there because they think like Scar. Well, he ended up with over 70 yards on the ground, whatever.
Right on 70, Danny. I bet it at 70, paying 3.5 to 1.
Oh,
I hit it right on the number. I had him over 10.5 carries. I told everybody, I don't care how many the carries are, 10.5 carries. I crushed it on that. I had him scoring the first touchdown of the game. That paid 8 to 1. When they had that review and they got to redo it, I had him just scoring 8 touchdowns. I won 2 bets on that first touchdown. And then I had him getting over 70 yards. So I crushed it on because like I said, man, you got to think like a coach. And he's been running the ball all year. But for this game, there is no tomorrow. They're going to run him more than in a traditional game because they don't care if he gets banged up. So that was easy money. I told all our listeners, Denny, cash in, baby. But hey, it was a real good game. And you know what I thought about watching this game? How like 15, 20 years ago, you had all the experts out here that said, oh, they'll never run that college stuff. This spread stuff, this RPO stuff, the quarterback run stuff. They'll never run that in the NFL. The defensive players are too fast. The defensive players our coaches are too smart. They'll never be able to run the Rich Rodriguez stuff. Because I remember hearing all that stuff years ago. Well, let me tell you, what we saw was 2 teams running offenses that started in the college game. And a lot of it was pushed up from the high school game. And the colleges copy it from a lot of smart. Believe me, a lot of stuff that colleges run, they see from high school coaches. And then the pro coaches are copying the college guys. But it was 2 teams that are very, very tough to defend. I thought Philly would do a better job defensively. But, you got to have running quarterbacks to run the stuff that they want to run. And, it was, I hope you listened to me. I hope our listeners listened to Scar. Jalen Hurts was going to win you some money. I cashed in yesterday on my bets, but the offenses have changed. There is no more eye backs. the Dallas Cowboy, Troy Aikman. I don't know how Troy Aikman would play in some of those guys would do in these offenses, because they want guys that can move a little bit. But these offenses are way more difficult to defend schematically than the stuff 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah, speaking of the listeners and viewers and the fine folks that take their time to send us some feedback, on Monday, they all ganged up on me. They thought they wanted more entertainment at the end. They thought it was not a good call by the official on Bradbury to call that hold. They thought it tainted the Super Bowl, and the refs were on the take. What did you think of the hold on Juju Smith-Schuster there late that essentially gave Kansas City the game?
Yeah. Denny, that's a call that I'd like to get like a question I'd like to, like someone like Mike Pereira, some of those longtime referees. I'd like to get your answer to that. Because obviously it's one of those calls that could have gone either way. And the question for a longtime referee is, do you make that call in that situation? It could have been called. It was easily justified. It's easily justified not to make the call. And the guy that should have answered it is somebody who's done big games like that. And do you make that call at that time in that game? And it's for me, I would say, I don't know that I would make the call.
Yeah, I would say it was a soft call. The answer to that is probably not. But I mean, if you're asking guys, it was just like the game before. I wanted to see Cincy and KC decided on the field and going to overtime or whatever else, but it was clearly a hit out of bounds. I mean, I know the referees got it. Now we're judging them on, okay, we want to have a great ending here. So, some of these, even though they're fouls, you got to keep it in your pocket. I mean, those are tough. That's why I couldn't kill them. However, since the NFL and colleges who make all of this money, and I don't even care how much money they can make all the money they want forever. But because they don't put the money back into the product, specifically the officials, and make them full-time and work all of the time, they deserve the criticism. I'm not standing up for them because they are only part-time, and they're asking for the criticism because they don't do everything they can to make the game as good as it can be, because they're I was going to say a bunch of greedy, but they don't care about that aspect. So shame on them. They deserve the criticism.
Danny, real quick though, again, watching those offenses, it's very much, Philadelphia is very much like watching Maryland play. The same kind of stuff. They're doing the same things. They're running their quarterback. And we do a lot of the same stuff that Kansas City's doing. So the game has changed in 20 years, and the colleges and the pros are the pros are more and more copying what the colleges are doing offensively.
Well, obviously, Michigan was watching Philly the last time that they played the Super Bowl and won it against New England, because they used the Philly special on the field on their first drive. Kansas City, Michigan was watching the Chiefs and Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy this year. They did some of that stuff down on the goal line where it was the shuffle pass ahead to Blake Corum. They also did some stuff that Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers did at Green Bay, where they put a guy in motion and then they took him right back and threw it to him. That was right out of the Green Bay handbook. So when you see Hurts under center plowing it in that rugby style and everybody pushing him from behind, we know they're all copycats. Michigan, you need a great center. You need a strong quarterback. They've got two interior guards that we know are stout and are NFL type guys. You think Michigan, how much will they look at that, and you think that they'll adopt that?
I'll tell you something that you're going to, Danny, coaches copy. We all copy. We talk to. I'll get into the clinics in a minute. But the thing that I think a lot of people are going to do is they're going to talk to Andy Reid. Andy Reid, I was talking to some of my old coaching buddies. I think Andy Reid went and talked to some Australian rule rugby guys to look at some of the things they were doing with that short yardage offensive scheme. They're all down in 4-point stances, and they just were getting great movement. I mean, it was automatic. They were getting movement on all that, on all them short yardage plays. Won me some money. But anyway, that's something I think people are going to be copying. Here's a question here. Scar, what schematic improvements do you think Michigan can make for the 2023 offensively or defensively. The answer I would have for that is, first of all, we got to be great offensively. You have to continue to be great at something. Be good at your foundation. Don't add so much that you're not good at your best stuff. So what I would add is little tweaks that are off of the same plays, and everything has to look the same. So add stuff that looks exactly like what you're doing. And defensively, I'm sure they're going to look and see what the TCU stuff was. TCU was because people are going to look at that. People in the Big Ten are going to look at the TCU game. So we have got to get answers for defending the things TCU did. Because if you're sitting there if you're Mel Tucker or you're Mike Loxley, you're saying, and Michigan's beating you, you're saying, okay, what did TCU do? So that's what I'm working on if I'm Michigan's defensive coaches, because I know I'm going to see that stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure the Eagles, who've led the NFL in sacks and had the third most sacks all time in the NFL, and then got blanked in the Super Bowl, no Eagle fans would have, nobody thought that Kansas City was going to beat them up front like that and their offensive line, and they actually did it. And it was a lot like that for Michigan. They look so dominant on their line plays until that TCU game. You wonder, what was going on there and all those, those different kind of things. That's fun to look at. And, we're just looking at the Super Bowl. They look at all those games in the NFL. Then they look at all of their games. Then they look at everybody else's games too. That's what they're doing here in the offseason. That's why they have all those analysts and stuff, right, Scar? Taking that tape and then bringing it and saying, hey, what about this? What about that?
Yeah, they're looking at every player, every play, every down and distance. They are analyzing things. Like I said, I was just simply a little high school coach, and I looked at 10 hours I would spend 10 hours on Saturday, 10 hours on Sunday, looked at every play, try to look at splits, alignment, any tips, any keys. And they've got a whole army of guys. I just had a couple guys, So it's in all those little things, if you can get any kind of any kind of tip, any kind of tell, like we do in poker, that the guy's doing certain things.
So. Let me ask you about hire. Just talking about analysts and coaches and everything else. Shem Beckler, people familiar with that name. He's headed back to Ann Arbor to be part of the staff. A guy who spent years as a scout in the NFL, the Raiders most recently. What will Shem Beckler bring to Michigan?
Denny, is that confirmed that he's coming?
It seems like it's all but confirmed. They haven't made any announcements there, but
okay. Well, let me tell you, I go way back with Shemmy. Shemmy was probably a 10, 11-year-old kid when I was a freshman. So I saw him hanging around. He hung around with, I remember Jason Carr, Lloyd Carr's kid, and Shemmy, and my position coach, Vuletich, all the kids, they kind of hung around. You saw them at practice. And Shemmy was one of the youngest of the crew there. But, we knew him. I knew him. We used to joke with him. And Shemmy was a good kid, man. We used to pick with him. And he took it he took it in stride. And then I saw, then I got into coaching. I was coaching at Ypsilanti High School. And Shemmy was playing tight end for the Ann Arbor Huron River Rats. So I coached against young Shemmy. He played tight end for Ann Arbor Huron. Was a good player for the River Rats. And then Shemmy actually worked with me at Tiger Stadium back in the days. But I know him as a friend. I know him. He's a good man. I can't call him a kid, but he's not a kid anymore. But I love him. He's a good guy. But he's been in evaluation. He's been in pro evaluation scouting, and he's had this little recruiting deal that he's been involved with too. But I'd like to see Shemmy with a whistle around his neck, maybe slowly work into to maybe be a coach one day, because he's a good communicator. He's a personable guy. He's got every. I would see no reason why he couldn't be a great coach. But Jim is, Jim's relationship with him goes back a long time. These guys, Jim was Jim was, like I said, he was his dad coached there so he would have known Shemmy when Shemmy was a 7-8-year-old kid, and Jim was a 13-year-old kid. So they go way back. And you know what? He's loyal and he don't care. He's gonna whatever. And Shemmy's out there. He's gonna bring him aboard, and they go way back. And I hope it works out for him.
Yeah, and for me, I not last year, maybe 2-3 years ago, I was talking with Shemmy, and those that would say, well, he's got the last name, that's why he's back here with Michigan. Yeah, I mean that's going to be part of it. His connections and the Schembechler name that helped him. It helped him in the NFL, but he's worked his whole life in football. And then just listening to him, just recalling our conversation, he's somebody that from the time he could talk was sitting like in film rooms and watching film with his dad. He would talk about his dad, and we were talking about those projectors, sitting in the room. Shemmy was sitting in a room with his dad watching tape and watching film, and he's done this his whole life. I don't know if anybody has more experience than watching film at his age than Shemmy Schembechler. So, if you value experience and the work in a film room, and then the practical experience out there, scouting and everything else, I mean, this guy's got that experience that he brings to the table. So, if whatever role that he would come back with, I would think that it would be positive for Michigan.
Yeah, he's a smart guy, and he can talk to people, and he'll be loyal as hell. And I'll take that any day of the week, man. And his experience is different than a lot of guys that Jim's brought in. So who knows what the benefit we can get from that. So I'm glad hopefully this thing will be official. You seem to believe it is, and I'm cheering for Shemmy.
I thought so. So I won't say 100%, but I thought that it looked like it was going to happen. All right, Scar, you got coaches clinics, both at the high school level and college level in the off season. The 25 years that you spent in high school coaching, this was a lot doing camps in the off season, both for high school and then working at college camp. So this is kind of your time of year. What are we looking at when it comes down to the calendar and all of these different clinics for the players nowadays?
Yeah, a friend of mine asked me, what are you talking about on your podcast? There's nothing going on. I said, well, I look back at my time as a high school coach, and what coaches are doing this time of year, high school, college, pro, they're all doing the same thing. They're talking to other coaches to get, they're having clinics, maybe staffs meeting or going to clinics. And it's something that you just do it. Every profession has, clinics and conventions, and no matter what kind of profession you're in, football coaches do the same thing. They get together, you'll have different speakers, and we had great ones, great clinics here in the state of Michigan. But I mean, I've been to clinics. I heard Nick Saban speak years ago, sitting in the front row, Nick hearing Saban talk. He was kind of, I just thought he was way above the heads of most of the people. Probably didn't understand what the hell he was talking about. Some of the terminology he was using. I heard Bobby Bowden speak. Some of those guys are real good. Some of them are weak. I thought Bowden was, they pay him a lot of money to bring these guys in to talk. But I found the best way to learn football in a clinic is when you have a small environment. I was part of a deal when I was coaching. It was a group of high school coaches at Birmingham Groves. The old Jim McDougal started that thing, and he would bring in different college coaches, bring their whole staff in. And then we had, 30, 40 different coaches from all around Metro Detroit would come in, and then we would be able to listen to these guys and ask questions, have something to eat with them and talk. And they would be right there. I remember Dan Mullen came when he was at Bowling Green, and those guys were great answering all your questions. I remember one time working, Jerry Kill came in with his staff when he was at Saginaw Valley at that time. And but clinics they're a big part of what's going on right now with I guarantee you the Michigan coaches, they are clinicking with other coaches. When I was playing at Michigan, I remember like during spring ball, we had our meetings. We're looking at film of our previous practice, previous scrimmage, and there would be coaching staffs in our film room from whatever college that our coaches invited them in. they would hear Gary Moeller, analyze the film, and then now they're listening to his, how he's coaching it, how he's critiquing it. So clinics are a big thing. People are learning. You learn from the other guy. I just remember my years is I got to stop Marine City and Marysville. So a lot of what I was constantly doing. Those were our two big opponents. How do I stop these guys? What do I do? How do I prepare my team? How do I go over practice schedule? I presented at many clinics also. Sometimes you get asked to, once you start winning a little bit, people might ask you to present at a clinic. But that's what's going on now. I think our listeners need to understand that our guys are also, even though we've had 2 good seasons in a row, they are. And I know Jim, he's going to continually. Any good coach or anybody in any profession, if you're just going to sit around and think, you got all the answers, you got problems, because everybody's constantly trying to catch you. So you better keep adapting and trying to stay ahead of the game.
Yeah. We could sit around and analyze Jim Harbaugh, but if we are talking about his good points, grinding and thinking about ways to improve his football team, I feel really confident that he is doing that and that he's leaving no stone unturned and that he's having these discussions. I think that's all he does. I mean, for enough people that you talk to that know him, like yourself, or, played with him and things like that, he is a grinded out football coach that likes to talk about, how to get his team better. And I don't feel like he's sitting around like smoking cigars and, watching Judge Judy all day.
No, hell no. He understands you have to have a good foundation, and you don't want to add too much. That's the thing that a lot of times my coaches would want to keep adding. You don't want to add too much where you forget about being real good at your basic stuff. You got to subtly, add a few things that you think can help your offense, that you can't overburden your kids. And then you're just kind of okay at a bunch of stuff instead of being real good at a few things. So you got to watch. I remember going to a clinic out at Carnegie Mellon, met with Dan Marino's high school coach. He was the offensive coordinator at Carnegie Mellon, and he was awesome. We learned a great deal about they actually ran an offense that was pretty popular in high schools at Carnegie Mellon. So. But yeah, you get with these small college coaches. Sometimes you can learn more football, and I guarantee you the big schools too, like the Michigans. Jim would not be afraid to talk to some small school guy who's doing something unique, who's doing something different, that he can learn from. He doesn't, just because you're Michigan, it doesn't mean you got to go. You can only talk to Andy Reid. No, you can learn some great stuff from some little small college guy that's like, wow, okay, this is a smart guy. He's doing some different things that I could, we could implement.
I didn't know Carnegie Mellon had a football program, so there you go.
Yeah, smart kids, man. Yeah, we went there and clinic with that coach all day long, and it was great stuff.
Yeah, well, it was great stuff from you today, Scar. What do you got planned for the rest of the week? With no football now, what are you going to do?
We're just watching a little college basketball. But then I got a couple other things on my list. How about Todd Monken? Good Georgia offensive coordinator, getting hired by the Baltimore Ravens. People talk about Georgia's talent. Well, let me tell you, they got good coaches too. That guy was smart. He made things real difficult for Michigan, last year when we played them. Another thing that I see, I think.
Can I jump in on that?
Go ahead.
Scar, when there was I don't know if it was a day or a week, it might even have been 2 days or 2 weeks where it looked like Harbaugh might have been headed to the NFL. I put out a top 5 coaches that would be on my list to call first. Todd Monken was on that list for me to call. So
listen, I watched them and I see what they do. Yes, they have good players, but man, he does not make things easy for you. He found weaknesses in our defense. And so John Harbaugh, I'm sure Jim gave him a good thumbs up too, because he made things difficult. Another thing, Danny, that I think you touched on it in one of your earlier podcasts was moving Texas home for us in 24, because I think that mathematically is, because I think JJ is going to be done after this year. I'm hoping he comes back. That would be great. But I'd rather play. See, this is the year I'd like to go on the road to play Texas, or go on the road to play Oklahoma or Washington, when you got your returning quarterback back. That's the way I always looked at my teams coaching. And I think Coach Schembeckler looked at it too. I want that tough opener when I got a returning starting quarterback with a bunch of offensive linemen and defensive linemen back. So, having them at home in 24, that'll probably be a first start for whoever our quarterback is. So I think that is a good thing, I think, for Michigan, that they switched like that.
I didn't think about that part. Of course, I was hoping that McCarthy.
Well, Danny, that's why I'm the old coach. I look at all the little things, and I know how I would think. I want to, when I go to Texas in a couple of years, or Oklahoma, I'd like to have a returning starting quarterback with a whole bunch of returning guys who played in tough situations. So that's that.
Yeah, the thing that I thought of originally is that because it was an even year, Michigan would be at Ohio State, and originally they were going to be they are now going to be in 27. I think they're going to Austin, so that's going to have, if I'm thinking of that right, or if it's going to be 25, that they're going to be going to Texas or to Oklahoma. If it's in an odd year, they're also going to have to be going to Columbus. So.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that just for that early in the year is where, in my opinion, it really matters. Later in the year, game 5, 6, Ohio State game, forget it by then. It doesn't matter so much. It's that early in the year is when you want that experience for your quarterback. I don't want that to be his first test, a tough game. Another thing, Danny, real quick, I know we've talked about divisions and how they're going to align these divisions. You've covered it a little bit. I just want to give my thoughts real quick. I want to just simply move Purdue over. That's it. Move Purdue over to the East. Let all them other guys be in the West, because I do not want to see Michigan State win a championship without having to play Ohio State like they did 2 times when we had the legends and leaders bullshit. Okay? So I want them to have to play Ohio State and Michigan, and because I do not want a divisional deal where Michigan has to beat Ohio State twice. That's crazy. That's totally unfair for Michigan. If we got to beat them guys at the end of the year, and somehow we'd have to beat them again before we get to the final, forget that. So I don't want Michigan. So that's all I want from this thing, is just simply move Purdue over, and everything's easy. It's a real simple fix. And I don't want Michigan State winning championships without beating Ohio State, and I don't want to have to beat them twice. Just want to give my thoughts on that.
I got bad news for you. I think that the most likely model right now is that there's not going to be any divisions, and that Michigan State is not going to have one of their locked-in rivals every year as Ohio State. Meanwhile, Michigan is. So that break that you talk about is going to be there for the Spartans, and that bad break that you talked about with Michigan, not only having to play them every year, but also having to play them in a Big Ten title game, that is likely going to happen. The good news is, Scar, is that there's not just 4 teams now. There's going to be 12 teams. So even if you lose one of those, maybe both, if those are the only 2 losses, you can still get in there and be one of the 12 teams. So that's the good news when it comes down to that.
Yeah, I want to win it, Denny. My focus is on winning a Big Ten championship. That other stuff is all good, but I want to win the Big Ten championship, and right. I don't want to see Michigan State walking around with championship rings that didn't play Ohio State. So much of that scheduling affects recruiting, or affects how, like I firmly believe Jeff Brom left Purdue because he realized, man, this is as high as we're going to go here. And if they move me over to the East, I'm wondering if he thought they might get kicked over to the East. It was time to get out. But again, you look at Indiana, how tough that job is there just because of the division he's in and the scheduling. But I just wanted to give I hope you're wrong on that, Denny. I really hope you're wrong that we don't have to beat them twice to win a championship every damn year. That's wrong.
Scar, forget Shemmy. If I closed my eyes and was just listening to you say, I don't care about the other stuff, I only care about winning the Big Ten, I would have sworn that it was Bo Schembechler that I was talking to right now, not one of his former players in Jim Scarcelli.
Well, Danny, listen, man, if you win the Big Ten championship, all that other stuff will take care of itself. You'll be right there. You'll have a home game, man. You have a bye. So focus on winning a championship, and then you get the bye, and then you get a home game. So all that other stuff will play out. But if you got to beat these guys twice. I mean, that's just, I don't know. Is Alabama got to beat LSU twice? It's going to hurt the Big Ten. It's going to hurt our top dogs in their ability to compete. We got to look at it from that standpoint too. Is Alabama going to play Auburn twice? So
Jim Scar Schembechler with us here. I love it. Scar, you sound like the old coach. We're just worried about winning a Big Ten. All right, Scar, I love it.
Hey, Danny, trust me, man. Coaches, listen, coaches big time. I know, I just thinking from a high school level, we are definitely worried. We are concerned, and we want to have a schedule that's, winnable. You don't want to get in all these little leagues here in high school. You get moved around here. Some guys got to play up, down based on so many different things. And I guarantee you that the coaches in the Big Ten, they're looking at two teams. When they get that schedule every year, they're looking at, do I have Ohio State and Michigan on my schedule? I guarantee you everybody in the Big Ten, they want to look at that before they do anything. When they get their schedule, when they open up that schedule for the first time, are they looking at Buckeyes and Wolverines? If not, a big sigh of relief.
Hey, I wasn't, I liked hearing from the old coach. Not calling you old. I liked you sounded like Bo. It's not a surprise. I mean, you played for him. You're a longtime coach. I would expect you at times to sound like Bo, and I'm glad you do. So thanks for that, Scar. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, Denny. We're all done here then. Go Blue.